High atop a German mountain, one of Hitler's personal strongholds still stands untouched, while nearly every other Nazi landmark was bombed, burned, or bulldozed into dust. Today, the Eagle's Nest remains perfectly preserved. This raises the question, why did this symbol of the regime survive total destruction? The answer is not what you would expect. It begins with an engineering marvel that defied both war and history itself. Blasting a road up the Kehlstein mountain was a feat that pushed to the limits of 1930s engineering. At 1,834 meters above sea level, the summit was reachable only by a narrow, winding path carved into sheer rock. Over 3,000 workers, Germans, Austrians, and Italians, labored for 13 months to create a 2-mile access road that clung to cliffs and passed through 5 hand-hewn tunnels. The work demanded precision and courage, with drops of 600 meters at their feet. Crews faced constant risk. 12 men lost their lives during construction, a grim measure of the danger involved. Supplies and equipment were hauled up by cableways or carried on the backs of porters, each load weighing as much as 50 kilograms. The project moved at a relentless pace, driven by the deadline of Hitler's 50th birthday in April 1939. In just over a year, the mountain was transformed from an isolated crag into a place accessible by motor vehicle, an achievement that stunned even seasoned engineers. The road's tight switchbacks and steep grade would later pose a challenge for anyone trying to reach the summit, including the Allied bombers who would target the area in the final days of the war. But for the men who built it, the Kehlstein Road stood as a testament to human effort and the costs exacted by ambition. At the heart of the Kehlstein House lies a technical achievement that still impresses engineers today. A vertical marvel, a shaft bored 124 meters straight through the mountain's granite core. This shaft, lined with polished brass and fitted with a bronze-plated elevator car, was designed not just for function, but for spectacle. Guests stepped into the elevator at the end of a long, cool tunnel and ascended in near silence, emerging into sunlight at the summit. The ride took less than a minute, carrying visitors from the mountain's interior to an altitude of 1,834 meters, over 6,000 feet above sea level. The elevator's opulent surfaces gleamed, reflecting the ambition and resources poured into the project. Yet, for all its grandeur, the elevator rarely carried its intended guest. Hitler himself visited the Eagle's Nest only about 14 times. He was uneasy with heights, prone to altitude sickness, and suspicious of the elevator's vulnerability to lightning strikes. These anxieties meant that the building, conceived as a symbol of the regime's power and reach, was mostly used by others, diplomats, party officials, and guests of Martin Bormann, who had overseen its construction as a birthday tribute. The paradox is hard to miss. A marvel of engineering, built at enormous cost and risk, stood largely empty, its golden elevator waiting for a leader who could never feel at ease inside it. The Kehlstein House, perched above the clouds, became less a center of command than a monument to excess and to the isolation of power. On the morning of April 25, 1945, hundreds of RAF Lancaster bombers crossed the Alps with their bomb bays loaded with high explosives. The target was clear, the Obersalzberg compound, sprawling across the lower slopes beneath the Kehlstein Peak. Flight logs from No. 5 Group show that the attacking force carried a mix of 4,000-pound cookie bombs and clusters of 500-pound bombs, heavy ordnance meant to tear through concrete and stone. The orders preserved in the UK National Archives specified a single aiming point, the Berghof and its neighbouring bunkers, not the mountaintop lodge perched 2 kilometres away. Navigators relied on radar and visual markers, but the steep terrain and swirling mountain air played tricks with their instruments. Pathfinders dropped coloured flares to guide the bombers, yet the markers clustered in the valley, pulled by gravity and wind. The Kehlstein House, isolated on its rocky spur at 1,834 meters, barely registered in the crosshairs. From high altitude, the main buildings of the Obersalzberg were easy to spot. The Eagle's Nest, a fraction of their size and separated by a sheer drop, simply fell outside the bombing pattern. Mission reports after the raid recorded devastation over the Berghof, Göring's house, and the SS barracks. Bomb plots showed a dense scatter across the compound and the slopes below, but the summit remained untouched. The aircrews had executed their orders with precision, yet the limits of their technology and the geography of the mountain left the Eagle's Nest standing, untouched, amid the ruins. Retreating SS troops moved quickly as American and French units closed in on Obersalzberg. On May 4, 1945, with the compound already battered by bombs, the SS set fire to the Berghof. Flames gutted Hitler's former residence, sending thick smoke into the mountain air. Eyewitnesses later described the blaze as a final act of destruction, an attempt to erase what remained before the Allies arrived. The fire raged through the night, leaving only a blackened shell where the heart of the Nazi leadership had once gathered. By dawn, the SS had vanished. Within hours, soldiers from the US 3rd Infantry Division and the French 2nd Armored Division swept into the ruins. They found the Berghof smoldering, its marble staircase cracked by heat, personal effects scattered among the ashes. American occupation reports noted the devastation. The compound's main buildings were either bombed out or burned, with only fragments of walls and twisted iron left standing. Yet on the mountain above, the Kehlstein House remained untouched, its doors still locked and its golden elevator silent. The capture of Obersalzberg marked the end of Nazi control in the region. The SS had tried to deny the Allies both material and symbolic victory, but the evidence of collapse was everywhere. For the US troops, the seizure of the compound was both a tactical success and a stark encounter with the regime's final self-inflicted ruin. In the early 1950s, the Bavarian state government ordered a sweeping demolition campaign across Obersalzberg. More than 50 buildings linked to the Nazi regime, mansions, barracks, and outbuildings were systematically torn down. The Berghof, once Hitler's private residence, was reduced to rubble by controlled explosions in 1952. Locals recalled the ground shaking and clouds of dust drifting over the valley for days. Official records from the Bavarian cabinet made the reasoning clear. Authorities feared that any remaining ruins could draw neo-Nazi sympathizers and turn the area into a site of pilgrimage. Even Hitler's tea house, a popular destination for party officials, was not spared. It was demolished by 1951. The policy was blunt. Authorities sought to erase the physical traces to prevent any kind of myth-making or cult activity. By the end of the campaign, Obersalzberg was stripped of nearly every building associated with the Nazi leadership, leaving only empty terraces and scattered stonework on the mountain slopes. While the ruins of the Berghof and dozens of Nazi buildings vanished from the Obersalzberg slopes, the Kehlstein House remained untouched. Credit for this exception often goes to Franz Jakob, the Bavarian district president at the time. Jakob argued that the Eagle's Nest, rarely used by Hitler himself, did not carry the same symbolic weight as the Berghof. Instead of demolition, officials leased the building in 1952 to the local Alpine Association, which in turn sublet it for use as a mountaintop guesthouse and restaurant. This arrangement opened the doors to the public, transforming a site once reserved for Nazi elites into a destination for hikers and tourists. By the 1960s, buses brought thousands each season, with visitors riding the original elevator to dine and take in the views. Today, the Kehlstein House welcomes hundreds of thousands each year. Its survival is more than a quirk of history. It is a deliberate decision to repurpose rather than erase, raising questions about how societies confront difficult pasts. Millions now visit a site that was once built for tyranny, proof that history's symbols can be repurposed but never erased. The eagle's nest endures as a stark reminder. Even in transformation, the past still echoes above us. What we choose to remember or to forget shapes the world we inherit.